We have too many enormous corporations out there. A wise man learns from their mistakes, a wiser man learns from others.
I use this and I don't feel anything. I didn't get high, and they were complaining maybe.
How do we educate people where they aren't misled? I think the hardest part about scaling is just financial.
Do you guys change the product nature or formulation, extraction method, or
We used to ship it to Canada. We sell a lot of it to Canada.
if you solve the problems and help people, money will be coming anyway. That's definitely.
Don't be afraid to start with nothing. CBD is wonderful. There's a lot of things involved in it.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here all together. And we are with the Vince Sanders, founder of the American Shaman or CBD American Shaman. And we will be talking about overall the CBD industry and beyond the CBD as well, and including actually Vince's the past and his professional opinion about the industry and where the industry possibly is going to be going in the future as well. Hello, Vince. I hope you hear me.
I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you as well. After waiting a couple of months, actually, you are a very busy person. I can say. So before going to the main subjects related to the business, actually, I just want to a little bit getting actual know to you in a better way, and I believe it will be very valuable for the audience as well. For instance, the first thing is actually where were you born and where were you raised at?
So I was literally born and raised in Kansas City, where we're still located. Been here my
Wow.
entire life. Never left.
Yeah, I can sense it from also your accent, and it's a great feeling. It should be a great feeling to live in the same place that you actually were born before.
And it's Kansas City's a nice size city. It's big enough. You have everything you want. So small enough to Midwestern. Everybody's friendly and outgoing. And the other benefit of being somewhere your entire life is that you know a lot of people. It's easier to get things done.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. And how was your childhood overall, or what do you think that actually Kansas City, or how it changed through the years?
Yeah. Oh, well, Kansas City's changed a lot over the years. Yeah. I've seen it nearly triple in size. Granted, I mean, I'll be 62 in less than 30 days. So it's a lot of time to
You don't look
watch.
like 62. I can say you look like around 52.
That would be nice. But unfortunately, that's what I am. Yeah, no, Kansas City was, when I was a kid, less than 1 million people. And now last census was 2.5, and the metro, probably pushing 3 million now. So dramatically better. But overall, the people are the same. They're still very friendly, Midwestern, outgoing. You've got more, to some degree, not, it's different. There was a lot more places as a kid growing up to where you could, there was a late teen, 20s, where you could go dance at clubs and things. It feels like that they're out there doing that much, but a little more contrived or corporate than what it used to be.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did any role model around you actually that you are? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of what, one of the things I've always done is I watch and listen to people, and, to pick good parts and combine it. A wise man learns from their mistakes. A wiser man learns from others.
Yes.
Done my best to learn from others. So I had, a lot of direct role models, but, I could say that, there's probably not a day in my life that I didn't pick up a little something from possibly just a complete stranger to something that I liked, or that, hey, that makes sense, or, just kind of brought into my own thinking or personality.
Sounds interesting. And what was your first work or first you worked at?
So the very first job I would have had at 12 years old, I was in 7th grade. I was literally walking home from school in the snow, and a guy in a white van pulls up and he goes, "Hey, you want to?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, he was really sketchy. Then it was like, "Huh?" But he goes, I need some through papers in the afternoons. Kansas City Star was our big paper. And I was like, yeah, I could do that. I don't remember the hours, but it was like 3 hours or something. And we had just jumped in the back of that van for the most part, heave them out the window. But the apartment complexes where I'd have to, I think about it now, because I drive by these apartments every day and they're big towers. They're 8 to 10 stories high. And you didn't use elevator. You just ran up and down the steps. I think about that, like, man, the cardio that had to be incredible. Carrying a big old stack of newspapers up and down 10 flights of stuff. And then the next morning,
It sounds very interesting, actually. My first job, by the way, it was selling lemons in the bazaar in Istanbul, and it wasn't easy because whenever I tried to sell something, other sellers they were me off by seeing that a kid, basically. It was a
Right.
fun experience.
That was their turf.
Yeah, definitely. And let me ask you this: did you get fired before in any job that actually you did when you were a kid or teenager?
Did a lot of jobs as a kid. I've been self-employed since I was 19, but I've never, yeah, never was fired. Was actually it was the opposite. I was always a really good worker and always got a lot of praise. But yeah, I mean, I've done everything from like as we just talked about, throwing papers to car washes to dishwashing, and granted, there was only a few years there till I actually was out on my own at 19. But yeah, no, I never got fired. Amazingly.
Yeah, that's great to hear actually, because when I do these interviews, many successful founders, I learn a few things actually. When they were young, sometimes they have that experience because they are too young to actually focus on the business world. But it's good to know that you probably have a very hardworking nature by starting to
That was
starting.
it. It's just work ethic, right? It wasn't a situation where it wasn't a business situation. I was a labor.
And when you look at actually behind, like your childhood or to your teenager life or to your, let's say, early business life as well, is there anything that actually happened that teach you a very important lesson and keep helping you until you are coming to the 62?
Yeah, my gosh. Uh, I mean, when you've
Pick
been in
one.
business for nearly 43 years at this point, I mean, other people go, what do you think's the most important lesson you ever learned, or what do you think is successful? And I'm like, really, it's problem solving. That's what I do in anything. I solve problems. I figure, okay, here's this. How do we fix it? How do we overcome it? How do we get over it, around it, under it, through it? And I think as an entrepreneur, you just because you're going to be faced with monumental problems continuously. And some industries more than others, but if you're not good at pivoting at a moment's notice, especially as fast as things move now, you're simply not going to be successful. It's complicated. And for just a business life of being kind of young and underfinanced or just out there hustling my way into things, it just taught me to be very, very creative and like to just notice. I don't hold anything. It's
So
like we've been doing it. Well, it's not the way we're doing it now.
definitely, I agree with you on that. And did you always want to be a business person, by the way?
I go up in a family of entrepreneurs on both sides. So most of the people that I was exposed to were self-employed. So I certainly, I never had a thought of, oh, I'm going to be an engineer or an accountant or an attorney or a physician. I mean, if I was going to have done a career, it probably would have been more in science or something like that. Uh, but even I could have been entrepreneurial. So yeah, I never, I just kind of have moved from thing to thing. Like, hey, this is here. This looks interesting. This could probably be something, and then pursued it, and then got out, figured it out as I did it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And what was the occupation of your mother and your father, by the way? They were also entrepreneurs?
Yeah, yeah. So no, my mom, she worked at when I was young, Southwestern Bell, and then there was a monopoly issue, so that the Supreme Court broke up AT&T into all the little group they're called baby AT&T. So at the time where she ended up working at AT&T. But so she worked at a managerial level and sales training, things like that at Southwest slash AT&T. My
Makes
dad,
sense.
entrepreneurial. But yeah, everybody in my mom's family, uncles and grandfather and everybody were entrepreneurial.
So basically, solving problems was a kind of family thing for you then. It was a kind
Very
of,
much. Very much. It still is to this day. Right? I mean, we're just constantly problem solving.
yeah, I can imagine. And when did you exactly start to think about the idea of CBD American Shaman? And what was the inspiration for it?
So the inspiration was is in 2012, an uncle who was dying of lung cancer, and I just was doing tons of reading and trying to figure out something that could help with lung cancer, and I found some studies from Israel and Spain and England on small cell lung cancer with CBD, and that's what took me down the track. And it was just one of those problem solving deals that I quickly kind of figured out how to get a hold of some material and extract it in a crude sense and make a product. What I saw with him was pretty amazing. Unfortunately, he ended up dying of staph infection, not of cancer. But it stayed with me, and I continued to refine it because what I saw with him, I really thought was amazing. But keep in mind that, that was in 2012. We went to business March 1st of 15. So for nearly 3 years, 2.5 years, whatever, I just continued to tinker with it and tune it in. But my idea always was more cancer treatment, in all honesty. But as we started to get later on, you started to realize, oh my gosh, the incredible anti-inflammatory properties of CBD, the anti-anxiety, all the things that stress relief, that was much bigger than what I had first witnessed.
Yeah.
And, that was a universal health and wellness product. And I can tell you this, I don't take a lot of supplements, but I never miss my CBD. I take it twice a day, every morning and every night. And I dramatically less inflammation in my body than I was 12 years ago when I started taking it. So, from 50 to 62, my joints, my knees, my fingers, knuckles, etc., are way better working order than they were then. And I would attribute all of it to CBD. I don't take anything else. I don't take any type of anti-inflammatories.
That's really great. Actually. That's really
It's experience. And I definitely think being an entrepreneur, as we talked about, all problem solving is all the stuff that's always coming your way. There's always stress related to it.
Yeah.
And for lack of a better word, I'm very calm and relaxed. And I attribute a lot of that to CBD as well.
Yep, that definitely makes sense. Especially an entrepreneur listens to this podcast or interview, they will understand what you mean, definitely. And basically, this was your first inspiration to the CBD industry overall, or hemp or cannabinoids overall.
I didn't know. I was literally just doing Google searches nonstop. I was expecting to find some, cancer treatment that wasn't approved FDA, but that was available somewhere else on in the world that I could go get and bring in. But that, didn't really find that, but I did find this hemp cannabinoid that showed signs. And here in the Midwest, this used to be a big hemp growing area, so there's still a lot of wild hemp around here. And that's we call ditchweed. That's what I was literally able to procure and make the first product from. So it just kind of all worked very, very organic. Honestly, it almost feels like it, kind of a divine intervention. This path was laid out that, was just kind of meant enough to follow it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And did you have any person around you who tries to discourage you when you were designing CBD American Shaman or having your first products designed, etc.?
A lot of people, because when we first started, it really was very much a gray area. It was technically, illegal, but it was questionable. The marijuana kind of wasn't. And then in Kentucky, they've got a law through they could grow hemp, extract CBD, and if you're part of a pilot program attached to a university, you could legally acquire it there and make products. So that's what I started doing because I was already doing it, and I thought about that. So I just pivoted, to grower that was associated with the University of Kentucky so that we could legally obtain it. I started making, real base tinctures, and then, later gummies and that type of thing. And we kind of progressed from there. But, we started March of 15. It's 11 years now. And see so many changes. The first few years were dramatic changes. We applied a lot of, better extracts, better methods, better ways to keep all the parts of the plant, not just the cannabinoid. CBD is wonderful. There's a lot of things involved in that plant, like flavonoids and terpenes that have a lot of medicinal value as well, that you really need to capture the plant in its whole state, as close to actually picking it off the stem and eating it as humanly possible. Because all those components work synergistically together. And that's the biggest thing I see is everybody is just CBD, or on the marijuana side, it's all THC. Well, there's so much more in that plant to just extract that one cannabinoid is very foolish.
True, I agree with that. And do you remember your first product, the first product that you formulated?
The first product depends when we're talking about first, whether we're talking about the first one I made from my uncle or we're talking about the first one we went to market with. The first one we went to with, because the CBD was incredibly expensive then. We literally did a little 2 ml vial, and it was 30 milligrams per ml, so it was 60 milligrams. And you could just tincture try it, or we put it in a base that you could vape it. So if you're a vapor, you could put it in a cartridge and vape it. And what we literally That was the very first product. Nobody knew what it was. And I was like, this has to be a relatively inexpensive product for somebody to pick up, use, realize this works, and then go bigger. And that's over time what we did: larger and larger packaging, bigger bottles, more milligrams, etc.
Yeah. In Turkey, when actually a store owner, when they do their first sale, they actually keep the first banknote or the first money or the first package. Did you also keep any memory for yourself from the first batch or the first product or something?
I wish I had. There's many times I wished stuff that I very originally extracted back in 2012 because I didn't have the wherewithal to know even what ranking. I don't know what was in those tubes. I mean, there's no question there was CBD, but there was other cannabinoids, or there been CBGs, THC, all kinds of different things. But yeah, that of all the things, what I really wish is that I knew the exact makeup of. Now I could repeat it. I could literally go get that same material again and just do a crude ethanol extract, test that, and know probably within 98, 99%, that's what it was. But I don't have anything from the original. And it's probably because I didn't want a whole lot of evidence around.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was your actually biggest obstacle when you start to do your, let's say, the first batch, you send the products to the sales and you start to get the feedbacks. And of course, there is still legal uncertainty or public misunderstanding. And which one of these things were hardest to, let's say, solve it?
Well, originally it was education. It was sales. It was hard for people to understand you had a product for cannabis that wasn't intoxicating and that was just health and wellness. A lot of people early on thought it was like nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Hey, here's undercover to get high, but it's kind of sort of leak. And yeah, I mean, literally, that's it. I've had almost arguments with people like, okay, I'll take that. You're like, no, 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 it's not going to do what you're expecting it. It won't do that. Okay, yeah, sure. You're like, no, no, listen, let me go this again. So early on, it was very difficult. And, a lot of the early sales, once it goes on a counter at a store, there's no one there to tell the people, hey, this is what this does. This isn't an undercover way to get high. So a lot of people bought it with anticipation of, hey, this is a legal way to get high. And they were, of course, disappointed. They didn't get high and they didn't rebuy the product. So it took a lot to really figure out where this product belonged and how to properly educate people. And we're here in Kansas City. Did a lot of the launch here. We did every kind of little fair or show that we could do. We give talks anytime. And I remember doing talks at a vitamin store or something, and 2 people be there. But little by little, you educated populace. And once you got enough people educated and using the product successfully, then they begin to share with others. And that really is what was the tipping. What people used it, realized it worked the things they were getting to.
Yeah.
They shared it with everybody. They felt it compulsory to tell friends and family, hey, here's this amazing product. I used to take blah, blah, blah. I don't take any anymore. Or this is how I'm here. And they just shouted from the mountaintops. So it organically grew, just grassroots, very quickly from that. To some degree, unfortunately, it's upon your mindset. In 2018, we were able to get that farm bill through, which had been it clearly made all these cannabinoids legal. We limited THC to 0.3%, which in our minds was these are all non-psychoactive cannabinoids, CBG, CBN, CBD that we extract. But the way it was written, we put a paragraph in there that said salts, isomers, et cetera, are legal. Well, we did that because we didn't want the DEA coming back and legally finding some angle to then make it illegal, even though we don't know that was not the legislature's intention. Well, some clever chemists read that and said, well, wait a minute, we could turn the CBD into Delta 8, Delta 9, blah, blah, blah. So now there's an enormous psychoactive market with these cannabinoids that was opened up by the Farm Bill unintentionally. And a lot of the market has moved that way, which is fine. I certainly have no problem with the toxicated cannabinoids. I use them myself. But it took a lot away from where we were at the health and wellness. And I really, I guess, regret, for lack of a better word, or wish that had happened or that was more clear that, hey, you've got that enormous health and wellness category here. Don't just jump on what will get you high or make you feel relaxed because you're high. How about actually being in balance of homeostasis and being less stressed to begin with? And let's get rid of the inflammation. Let's do all these other things that these products can do. And the market, when that from 15 through early mid 19 was a bit like a rocket. Just CBD sales, CBG sales, all these things were just climbing, climbing. And then as soon as this came out, very much leveled or started to slowly taper, kind of find its balance that we're at now. I oftentimes think, had that not happened, where would we be?
Yeah.
We'd have to be further ahead.
It's a great journey, actually. And I also wonder one thing related to the beginning of the journey. So you said that actually many people were buying the product with the hope of getting high because they didn't know anything about it in the beginning, and they
Right.
were maybe holding the company and by saying that I use this and I don't feel anything, I didn't get high, and they were complaining maybe in the beginning as well. Did you have this type of consumer complaints as well in the first
Uh,
launch?
A few. I think the reason we didn't have that many is because we went out of our way to market it that it was not psychoactive.
Okay.
If they were reading something into it and then realized, oh, I made a mistake, those guys were being, really slick and getting around something, but apparently it really is not psychoactive. So we didn't get too many complaints. What you just saw was, early on, we thought we were blown away how it took off in early 15. But by mid 15, those sales did almost stop because all those early sales were people thinking they had a legal high. And when they learned they didn't, it just stopped. And then we had to really go back to the drawing board, go, okay, what happened? And then as we interviewed and talked to people and clerks at stores and things, we realized, okay, everybody that initially bought this product, I thought it was illegal marijuana. They quickly found out it wasn't and then discontinued the use. So here we are, we're back to our health and wellness where we started. How can we educate people where they're misled, where they don't think, okay, it's a legal high, that this really is health and wellness. And we spent more and more time with the clerks at the stores. We produced more and more written lead behind material. And again, tried to get in front of as many people eye to eye as humanly possible. And those first several years were really big. We probably were in front of upwards of 1 million people, I would guess. So when you're in front of that many people, you start to make some headway in that process. And then, we were, of course, one of the very first people. It was us, Shaman's Lab, Elixinol, Bluebird Botanical, CV Sciences, and that's pretty much it. That was really the start. It was, it's a very small group, but there was still other people out there educating as well. And that it just synergistically kind of between what we're doing, what the other companies were doing, what the people were experiencing themselves and sharing with others. We ended up with an industry that was thriving and still a good industry. But again, it's not what it could be because people confuse lack of stress with being high. Right? You don't have to be intoxicated to not have stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not intoxicated whatsoever right now, and I have no stress. I'm sitting here calmly. So, yeah, and then believe me, there's plenty of things that on my mind that could cause stress. But hopefully, we can turn that corner, but turn it in a way via education by taking the products away. Prohibition doesn't work, never has worked. It's a great of our time. So I don't want to see any of these products prohibited for sure. And hope that we can get back to re-educating people that, hey, there's an alternative here. There's a better way. You don't have to be foggy to be calm, right? You don't have to.
A great point, to be honest. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, because some of these shows we did were really big.
because becoming the brain fog and getting high and getting also save yourself from the stress, they usually think that these are the synonyms, but it doesn't have to be.
Correct. That's
Yeah,
it.
right.
And the problem I have is with the cannabinoids is they definitely slow down my memory and thinking if I do them very often. And I can't afford to lose any of my ability. I
Of course.
can't. Yeah, to be like, what was I talking about? Or like, what's that word? It just doesn't work. So, I have to remain in a balance, which is most people do. Abuse isn't good with any product, but unfortunately, it seems like with intoxicating things, people a chunk of people are more apt to use daily because when they're not intoxicated and that stress comes back, what do? They get reintoxicated, so they get a daily cycle of intoxication. Hey, I don't need my grain powder. I can get high. I can drink my alcohol, whatever. And they're not as functional. They're hurting themselves, but they don't realize it. They think that's their stress management. Really, stress management is dealing with the source and not having it.
Yeah, and do you think that actually some of these misunderstandings actually maybe sometimes they're caused by some, let's say, some of the other, let's say, low quality untested products in the market? Maybe they use the wrong product sometimes and they get the wrong effect from it, and these misbeliefs or the misunderstandings come from there.
Well, for sure. And in all honesty, that's back to the FDA. We really can't say anything. We can't make health claims, right? I can't, we can put things on there. Mood support. We can hint at things, but we can't say this will do this. And to do those type of things would require, IRBs where you would have to get permission from the government to do human trials. It would take years and years to do. They take tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's just not realistic here.
Sorry for interrupting. Do you think that actually what FDA does here for the industry, do you think it is helping the consumers in any way when they actually be that strict?
No, because they don't regulate. They don't do anything. If they would go around and actually regulate and go, hey, this doesn't have anything in it. This is a scam or this, right? Do that type of thing. But at the end of the day, everything is about education and learning. And if we're hogtied and I can't explain anything to you, well, who suffers? You do, because you don't use it. Right? I mean, imagine sitting down in front of a computer with you've never seen a computer. You've never used it. You just turned it on.
That's
It would take you to effectively use it. Machinery, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a lifetime. You might never figure it all out. If you had someone sit down for 10 or 20 hours with you, you can be an expert. You can take it from there.
true.
But that's we're not allowed to do. And that is what's worked for us is in these talks and things in front of people is to educate them as much as we're comfortable that we're not, FDA is not going to come down on
And
us.
I also wonder one thing: if FDA doesn't allow you or other companies to actually tell anything in terms of health claims, why don't they at least train or educate people on these misunderstandings?
Right. Well, the FDA does not want anything to do with hemp or any kind of natural product. At the end of the day, they're over half of their budget comes from licensing pharmaceuticals. So we're very much pro pharmaceutical. I mean, that's how they're paying. People work their pay plan, right? That's what they do, and they protect it. So when you come out with an affordable product, they're not real supportive. And the way they really, if it takes off too much, then put a lot of enforcement action and try and shut you down. But the easiest way is just through neglect, constant public statements that, hey, this is dangerous. This could be this could be that. The very first example that I remember was vaping. You've got something many times safer than because billions of dollars a year are collected in taxes from big tobacco. FDA would not get on board. They would keep acting as if, hey, this we don't, this is a whole nother health epidemic problem. This is like smoking. Well, it's probably 9% safer. So if you really were there to protect your citizens, you should have been so far behind the vape industry, that smoking 500,000 people a year in America. You should back in the be more behind, but they did their best to kill it and did it by neglect and constant harassment or public statements that, we think this could be, there's these chemicals produced, but these headlines get the unlearned shackles up. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard early on, smokers like, well, hell, that seems like just as bad. Why would I?
Yeah. It looks like then FDA actually is to protect their own sponsors rather than the consumer actually, and they just use the health as a disguise their real intentions in that case.
It is FDA is definitely the protective powers that be. That's very odd.
Okay, it's a little bit depressing to know, but better than not knowing. So at least when you see the balance of the power there, it makes perfect sense. And if you were giving a message to the FDA or lawmakers or regulators, what it will be?
The biggest message of all is no advances with ignorance, and science is there. There's no reason to get this blessed or not be behind it. If you're really there to help the populace and the people that voted you into office, you should be getting behind these things. You should be promoting them. Government funds should be pouring into them.
Definitely.
Universities should studying that, the FDA should be pouring money into it, not the opposite. Nothing happens in the darkness. You've got to bring things to light and use science and find out what is or isn't, and then educate. Yeah, that's not, it's so much good to educate people now with the internet. The knowledge is out there. Release it. It's not like a lot of time or effort. Do the studies and make it public.
That's true. It looks like actually industry is growing thanks to the education and also under the pressure of official governmental organizations at the same time, I can say. And among all these, let's say the dynamics of the industry, what are the three main principles that is actually guiding you and the CBD American Shaman when you design your products or when you educate people? Because it looks like you have a kind of journey since the beginning. And grows through your efforts, and what are these three main motivational principles for you?
Well, the main guiding our North Star, if you will, since day one, when this started without the intention of being in business, was empathy and wanting to help someone. And that is just not translated out into from one person to millions. And, is this a good product? How will it help people? What can we, not only it's a good product, but how can we deliver it in the best fashion to where it's the most bioavailable, the most effective and affordable, right? It doesn't do any good if only a handful of people can reach it. I mean, healthcare is for everyone. And people in Europe are lucky enough they have government paid medicine. But here in the United States, we don't. And many, many people struggle with healthcare. And it's a shame. But we do have some very good, natural, affordable ways to health. And that is what we have to do, is continue to bring great products to market that aren't talk. They're real. They're based in reality. They're based in science.
Yeah.
They do work better, and there's reasons why they work. I think, my sole guiding principle in life is really the golden rule. Do unto others, you can do unto you. If everybody followed that, we wouldn't need any other rules or laws.
True. And also,
None of it would be or cheated or
yeah.
pointed out by eight other things.
Yeah. And considering that actually your entire inspiration came from finding a health issues solution, I believe that is one of the most important, let's say, the principle in this area. And when it comes to a little bit the entrepreneurial side of these things, because there is a huge, let's say, governmental pressure or legal regulation pressure on the market all the time. And at the same time, you, of course, need to keep things profitable while also helping people as well. And in terms of scaling your company or handling the management or people management and hiring new employees, did you have a hard time while you actually create your company for the first time? It might not be that easy to hire somebody first time or fire somebody also first time as well.
Well, we were kind of lucky that we were in the cannabis space, which a lot of people were interested in. So we actually had a pretty good pool of people. Once it's not that big a deal now, right? This is like, it depends on what end you are. If you're on the educational, the fighting front, yeah. But if it comes to the manufacturing side, working your 8-hour shift, this is like making other products. Oh, you're good about what you're doing, and we still have a large group of people, even in the manufacturing side, that use the products and believe in alternative healthcare. We're pretty lucky. Honestly, it's easier. If I was running a welding shop or something, I'm sure it would be a whole lot harder.
Yeah, I can imagine. So scaling company wasn't that hard actually. You expected maybe in the first place.
Well, I think the hardest part about scaling is just financial, and you're in an industry where you can't borrow money. In fact, you're lucky if you can find a bank account. We've
Yeah.
come perilously close. I mean, literally into not having banking before. How do you run a business without a bank? These are things that enormous challenges. So everything went completely internal. We had to make, if we wanted to grow, we had to make money, and then we had to hold on to that money, and we had to apply it where it was most needed. And it's a slower growth process than if you could go out and borrow it. It's a very much more sustainable, solid growth.
Yeah.
I don't, thank God that every month I don't like, okay, we got to pay this X, for all this money, or bring in a bunch of investors, have a bunch of, chefs in the kitchen. By being a solely owned entity, I'm able to make decisions on my own, good, bad, or otherwise. But it leaves us very nimble where we in this type of industry, especially.
to know that. And do you, when you actually achieve a kind of growth milestone, CBD American Shaman, do you guys do a kind of internal party or a kind of celebration or something? It's a big brand. So.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. Early on, smaller or a lot less people, it was a lot easier to do that. We'd have our little, we'd go across the street to the Mexican restaurant, all have dinner, and we'd have pictures of margaritas and just celebrate. But at this point, we're in multiple facilities, 500 people. It's just not realistic to do something like that. We had our 10-year anniversary party, which was wonderful. It was a great time, but even that, obviously not everyone could attend, and it was many months after our actual 10-year anniversary to plan it and get it laid out. So it's like anything. The bigger you get, the harder it is to bring. Even if you're in a family, if you're having a family reunion, if you had 3 or 4 people that all live close together, it'd be very easy to bring everybody together. But if you're in a family,
it's too big to get everyone. Yeah, it's too big.
Difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah, nearly impossible, unfortunately.
And when you are designing your products, if a customer gives you a logical, let's say, the feedback, or a kind of whether you see that a feedback is actually coming a lot, do you guys change the product nature or formulation, extraction method, or all these things?
100%. Yeah, the consumer really is your guide. So,
and how they can see these feedbacks, the CBD American Shaman, through the website, or is there a full?
You have live operators you can call. The other thing is, we have hundreds of stores across the U.S., so we get a lot of feedback at first, and we listen to the people at the stores and what consumers are telling them. And honestly, some of our greatest innovations and best products have come from customer feedback.
Yeah, that's actually great. We are actually active a little bit in the tequila industry, and tequila is a kind of product with spirit. It's very sensitive, actually, for many people. And when it comes to the quality of a tequila, from its color to the smell to its intensity, they look many, many different things. And I like tequila too, but I'm not that deep in, I can say. And when it comes to the CBD products, for instance, how do you define a quality CBD product? What are the main ingredients or the fundamentals of that, do you think?
So, number one, you want a good extract. Ethanol or CO2 really captures the most of the other plant materials, and the key is not cleaning it up. Well, there's people that want to get rid of all that stuff and just have CBD or THC or whatever, get it down to that single molecule. And I think the easiest way to think of that is what is better for you, white bread or multigrain.
Yeah.
Right. You get rid of all that good stuff, all that from those other things, and you boil it down to just the white flour. And, it's nowhere near as nutritious or healthy. And the same thing applies here. There's all kinds of ingredients in there besides just cannabinoid that we want. So the main thing is to use an extraction method that pulls as many elements out of that plant as possible and leaves them as close as they are to nature. So that I'm giving you a condensed version of what you would have had you picked a bud or flower off of that plant and ingested it. That is our goal. And a lot of things are not that bioavailable. Cannabinoids or lipids are oil based, and your body doesn't ingest that very well, only about 10%. So clear back in late 2016, we actually came out with a nano product, which what that does is breaks that oil down to the size of a virus, and it makes it so small that your body can't stop it from getting in. So then you have a bioavailability of at or near 100%. So you can take 1/10 as much product and get the same results and get it much quicker.
Is this the what people call nano CBD? If I am confusing, but it's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it. But you still want all the components. We don't want just CBD.
Yeah, it's a very
you make some products, but that's due to people that have jobs that are afraid of testing dirty on a UA, right? For THC.
Wow, that's actually good to know. And the lab tests or laboratory tests for these products, do they help for transparency or earning the trust of the users, or do they help you in any specific way?
Well, they help us for sure. We have a number of chemists that work here, and we test our products as we make them, and now we know what's in it, right? How do you know if you're not testing? Theoretically, the batch states we put this much in, we made this many pieces, but what if it didn't homogenize or it's not even? What if this one is 3 times higher than what it should be? And this one is a third lower, 2/3 lower than it should. So the key is good manufacturing practices and SOPs that tell the person who's actually making the batch how to properly, mix it so where it's even. But the way the end all be all is that pull random pieces from that and have a chemist test it before it ever goes out to make sure that you are accurate. Like say there's 10 milligrams in a gummy, we need to know there's 10 milligrams in a gummy. Not,
Yeah.
oh, there's 5 in this one, but there's 15 in that one. Well, that doesn't
Yeah.
easier to have happen to be a thing. It amazes me how few people actually do on-site testing. I just don't understand it. It's like, well, how do you know that you're being accurate? And
Yeah.
you know,
That's why we have labs, I guess, right? It requires some.
interestingly enough, is I was one of the people that pushed real hard early on to have third-party lab tests. Yeah, because it's like, well, the people can cheat from inside. But then the reality of it is, why you can make a golden sample, send it to a party lab, get this perfect lab test, but that doesn't actually represent what you're making.
Yeah.
So the fallacy is if you're going to do something wrong, you're going to do something wrong. So we didn't really accomplish anything other than making it more difficult for a manufacturer. Granted, we're at size, so we have chemists here. But prior to that, we literally, I would send product off and let it sit until a third party lab came back. Sometimes that's a couple of weeks. So to have product sitting that could have immediately gone to market, just to know that, hey, it is accurate, that puts a big load on smaller companies. It makes them less efficient. So what happens? Hey, we need the revenue. The product just goes out. So hindsight's 2020, and I look back and the fallacy of the idea of the third party lab. It was done for good reasons, but it really should be that. I wish we had done it.
Okay, so basically, consumers, I guess, they are checking it as they should be checking, and it is actually making things harder for the manufacturers, especially for the small companies in this case. Actually,
Right.
good to know. And in that case, if somebody wants to understand that whether that product is quality or not, and let's say they're not able to understand the lab report, and it might not be meaning that much, what they can check on it? They shall test every CBD product until they find the one, or are there some suggestions?
But honestly, set the lab tests all it apart. The best work is the one that works best for you. And the only way you're going to do that to know that is to try it. And you're not talking about, this isn't like taking an aspirin, like, oh, my shoulder hurts. Let me take this. Oh, my shoulder feels bad. No, this is a natural, gradual process, a very organic process. You're going to need to take a product like this twice a day to keep your body in balance or homeostasis for 30 days or so till you really start to realize an effect. And after days, weeks, you really get to realize it's an effect. But it isn't something that you're going to take 2 or 3 times and take something else 2 or 3 times, something else 2 or 3 times. And in 2 weeks go, okay, of these 6 that I tried, this is the best one. Just doesn't work like that. It requires patience and it requires self-discipline to become with it. Again, it's not an aspirin. You don't take it as needed. Something like CBD, you take twice a day, every morning, every night, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to really see the results. If you're taking a CBN gummy or a THC gummy for sleep, sure, you can do that as needed. You'll know, hey, help me sleep or not. CBG for energy. You can take those one off. But if you're doing taking CBD for the overarching health and wellness effects, it needs to be a lifestyle. It has to be a complete change. It's not getting else.
But to understand whether a product works for somebody or not, does it take usually 30 days, twice a time they should be using and they should be waiting for
30 days. And you should know. And the other thing is don't trust your memory. It's not as good as you think. You got to journal. You have to sit down, first write a list of, hey, why am I taking this? And write those things down. Stress. That's right. It's that, the other, whatever it is. And then every day you really need to do a quick journal and then you can review it and go, oh, wow, I am better. I remember when I started, my stress level was an 8 and 3 weeks in, I wrote it was a 5.5. And now I think it's 3. That those are the type of real numbers that are accurate that you recorded are really the best and only way to know how well something is working accurately. But the same type of journaling will help you with dosage well, because it will change over time. You'll realize once you get in homeostasis or balance, you can usually take less.
That's great to know. And the products that we are talking about here, do they also help for overall recovery speed for the muscles after the exercising? And
Yeah, it's definitely helps with recovery. And that's again because it gets rid of all that inflammation. Inflammation is responsible for so many bad things within your body. And anything you can do to keep that down, whether that's a cold plunge or ibuprofen or, CBD, it's going to dramatically improve an athletic performance or recovery of any kind.
that's actually great to know. I'm sure that many athletes they are using it without saying. Actually, I know some already. Actually, they do before sleeping or before sometimes even actually before sauna type of things. They said it actually helps them for relaxing even further as well. And when actually a person who tries to actually start using these products, CBD products or other type of psychoactives as well, how they can differentiate a quality one from a not that much quality one? But besides checking reviews or other things, let's say I have two different cans or packages in my left and right hand. What values I should be reading, or are there some certificates or licenses that they should be checking on the packages? Do you think?
There really isn't. The only thing that you'd have a lab report on there that you could scan and see where it came out. But again, like we talked about earlier,
This is for a beginner, I can tell.
yeah, yeah, A, if you don't know what that report means, it doesn't mean much. B, if you're dealing with a scrupulous company, they can make a good lab report. It doesn't mean that represents what's in the product.
Yeah, that's also true. And when you look at the industry, what do you think that actually is going to be happening for the next 10 or 15 years of the CBD industry overall? Or what is your expectation, for instance? What would you like to be happening?
It's difficult to project an industry like this 10 years. The
Maybe
fact,
2 years.
yeah, I mean, honestly, it's sometimes it's hard to predict months out. We have potentially a change in the laws as of November of this year for the intoxicating cannabinoids. So if that stands and it's not lobbied away or negotiated, all those cannabinoids that everybody has started using since late teen could be gone. So 7 years of an industry gone, and then people will, a certain percentage of those people will turn back to the CBD, CBG, and these other natural cannabinoids that aren't psychoactive. Who knows? One thing I have learned is difficult, if not impossible. Stuff's going. We know where we want it to go, and we're very hard to lobby and educate lawmakers as to, hey, here's what you need to do, and here's why. But a lot of things are done for political reasons and, as favors. And so, well, if you vote for this, I'll vote for that. Some of them have absolutely nothing to do with even what
The city. Yeah.
yeah, it has nothing to do with it. So it becomes very difficult. And when you live in a country like the US, you have, of course, overarching federal laws, but then you have state laws. You have 50
Yeah.
different, and so it's a patchwork of laws that you're working within. And then sometimes counties and cities get involved. I've done a lot of things, and this is far and away the most complex and hardest to predict.
Sorry for interrupting. For such an industry, how do you adjust your production speed or your shipments sizes? And how, if something becomes illegal suddenly, what happens to these products on that state that you already have sent? It's
Right.
really hard to manage a business in that way.
Well, so you'll know a few months ahead of time because a law will have to pass, and then there's a start date. So if it passes in May, then maybe it starts July 1st or something. So okay, after the last day of June is the last day we ship, or what have you. And it's really interesting when that happens. You'll see an enormous sales for a few months just stock up. But the sad thing is if it's not in a recreational state where they can have access to marijuana and those products. Well, now suddenly somebody who's been enjoying something for years has to go to the black market, has to become, criminal in order to get what they were using,
Yeah.
legally. So again, prohibition is just a bad thing. Nothing good comes from it.
I agree with that.
So
Yeah. We all remember how Al Capone became out. So it's definitely.
it doesn't go away. It just goes underground. And that brings a host of other issues. None of which are good.
Definitely. And also government can't tax it. So it's even worse for them as well. So
Right. Everybody loses.
definitely. And is there any association or community in the US actually that wants to legalize these things or give some freedom as well? And maybe you are also a member of it in some way.
Well, I was one of the founding members of the HEP Round back in 2016, and that was there was just a handful of companies that I mentioned earlier that it's like, if we're lucky enough to survive and become big companies, we can worry about competing then. But right now, our very survival depends on this. So the best thing we could do is join forces because none of us is big enough to have an impact alone. Even together, we may not be big enough to make any difference. But amazingly, this small band of hardy people was able to overturn, 90 years cannabis prohibition, nearly 90 years, almost single handedly. It's hard when I sit here and think about it. I'm not thinking about it. It's just, we did that and you keep moving. When I really think about it, it's hard to believe that just this small group of people with not a ton of money or political connections or anything were actually able to change a law that was almost a century old. Here in the United States, we definitely have our share of issues and problems. But I would say that the fact that a small group of citizens can actually change a major law like that says a lot. So, that the power to some degree still is in the people's hands.
For a regular normal person or citizen, is there anything that they can also do for actually helping to do you and all these companies to legalize this? Or is there a kind of, I don't know, maybe political movement or a representative in Senate or something?
At this point, on the legalization side, or keeping legal the intoxicating camp, the only thing you can do is involved and write your local, congressman, senator, of, hey, I use these products. This is what I use them for. They're very successful. Please don't take it away from me, because then I'll be forced to go to the street. And
Yeah.
what's amazing is a lot of the people that are using those types are not what I think lawmakers think. They're not some kid, they're not some book hippie. It's a 75-year-old woman that tips her and she's trying to treat him. That has doesn't sleep well. And this gives me way better sleep without all the side effects of prescription sleep aids. And so that consumer translates very well, when they put theirs there and say, hey, I'm 75 years old. I've done this, I've done that. I'm retired. I was an herb. And I found that these products work far better than any of the prescriptions that my physicians have given me without the side effects. They're very effective. They're very affordable. Please don't take them away. And at the end of the day, public officials are elected by the people. So they do to some degree answer to them.
That's true. And in the universities, when they do these scientific researches about the CBD products or overall psychoactives or the market, do you think that actually some maybe organizations are actually funding universities for giving sometimes, let's say, some, I wouldn't say shady, but I will tell it maybe to throw shade to the CBD. They might be doing maybe some different type of researches to manipulate the data in a way, in a smart way.
I agree. Yeah. And that, again, it's kind of, unfortunately, live in a world that money talks and it carries a lot of power, a lot of weight. And, people like Big Pharma have more money than anybody. They have like hundreds of billions of dollars of liquid assets sitting around, the connections to, colleges and things for many, many decades.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of influence. And it's just the money. At this point, it feels as if I talked to a lot of these researchers that they've actually been brainwashed. They're very dogmatic in some of their responses when you talk to them about these natural dates. They snap back quickly with a party line that once not taught this, it's not that. And you're like, yeah, but listen, millions of people are using it successfully. Don't you think that accounts for something? Well, it's anecdotal. Well, isn't it kind of what mankind did for millenniums, for thousands and thousands of years? The tribes used this leaf or that mushroom or this or that for these purposes, and they found out, oh, wow, when you have an infection, this works great. Or you have a headache, this takes it away. Oh, guess what? When you ingest this, you don't get malaria. And that, almost all the medicines we have now are
Yes.
copies of those medicines. They're just synthetically made. So, suddenly, okay, well, that works, but all that other stuff, that was just a bunch of, nonsense. Well, no, it wasn't nonsense. And it still isn't. The best people to figure this out are the people. And there's a question that these products dramatically change people's lives and make their health and wellness dramatically better. Getting powers that be behind it is difficult. Though. I want to say the powers that be, less and less, early on it was physicians, but a lot of the physicians have really come over and opened their eyes. It's more back to the FDA and researchers saying, way, yeah. But the other thing is because this isn't synthetic and is natural, it's not patentable. Anybody can just market. So you're not going to get somebody invests hundreds of millions of dollars in doing these kind of studies because they don't have any exclusivity. So it's very hard to get that money back.
Definitely, yeah. I believe it's interesting on how they are using the actual science enact or regulate what they want to see at the end of the day. Science becomes like just a tool that they want to use. in the past was religion, now it becomes the science or the scientific organizations, basically. And in the United States, is there any political discussion around these things as well? Like, I just make an assumption here. Know nothing about the political.
Political, talk around this. It really crosses party lines. So, a lot of people think, back not that long ago when the Republican Party was very much anti-drug, but their eyes have been opened that, hey, prohibition doesn't work. These are drugs that hurt people. They help people. So it's kind of a light bulb moment for them. Democrats have our side anyway. So it kind of really has at this point crossed party lines. I can't say, oh, well, we've really got the Republicans behind us and Democrats behind us. And as long as it's not hurting anyone, they're at least neutral on it, which is kind of where we're at this. We have big alcohol, big pharma, tobacco that are really our enemies. That's who's funding the people that fight against us. Predominantly.
Definitely. And do you consider also selling these products to maybe beyond US? This way, actually, maybe you can save yourself from some of these.
Very much. We used to ship it to Canada. We sell a lot of it to Canada, and they made it a prescription drug in year 18. I don't remember. But yeah, the other thing is the affordability. This is like it would work in a Europe, for instance, but you get into more second world countries, becomes more difficult to afford it. Now, if we were making at a scale for the whole world, economies of scale, right, the price of this product will come down. So then it could be more affordable. But it's a chicken or the egg thing, right?
Yeah.
Be able to eat a lot of money maybe to begin with to deliver these products, maybe at a loss or a break even for a period of time to where you could get that manufacturing up to the point that the prices drop significantly to where you literally could become a low profit.
Sure. But also the tariff tax and the shipment cost. And if you manufacture in that country, which is another giant investment for building facility, hiring the salespersons, it's too much. Yeah, I can.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah,
definitely.
None of it's easy.
Definitely not easy. It's like creating two CBD American Shaman type of heart. And
we're definitely interested in it, and Europe has been on my mind for a long time. But it's been such a pitched world economically, COVID and everything. It just literally growing like a rocket until COVID hit, and that, like most businesses, slowed things down and slowed down travel and expansion plans and made people go to, say, Europe and look around and potentially open up. By the time that recovered several years later, now here we are. It's making sense, but so much of our time is eaten up right here in the United States, just with compliance issues and distribution and normal real life stuff like manufacturing. So,
and also political problems, also another side of these things too. If there is a political crisis between, let's say, the continents, again, it can change everything as well. Many other things there, we can say.
Right. You could get caught up in some kind of tariff war where it's like, wow, instead of more affordable, it's actually costs you 3 times more than it does here in the US.
That's true. Once actually we had a partner, he was actually selling gold from Germany to the United States. And his advantage was the gold was cheaper, despite he is shipping it. And then after the tariff tax for the European countries increased, and then entire advantage actually disappeared. And then he needed to find somewhere from Colombia to manufacture and do the shipment, etc. So international situation is not that, let's say, not that trustworthy. Definitely. And Wim, since the beginning of the interview, I can tell that actually, I can see that actually you are attached to the people, and your entire inspiration actually comes from helping someone special for you. And I wondered that actually for the customer stories, like, do you remember any specific customer feedback that actually made you maybe emotional? Or maybe you always remember one mail or one phone call?
So much. The most dramatic thing that I ever personally experienced was early on. We'd probably been manufacturing these products for maybe 2 years at most, probably like late 16 or 17. And there was a family here in Kansas City, and they had a little boy that was having massive cluster seizures, like 100 seizures a day. And there's a large children's hospital there, Children's Mercy, that they're going to practically live there. And there was a newspaper article about them. And someone I knew sent it to me and said, hey, you think that because CBD is tremendous for seizures, you think this could help them? And I'm like, probably, but Yeah, no. So we reached out to them and they responded, and I went to visit them. And at the time that, this was a toddler, 18 months old, and I'm sitting there visiting with the parents about how it works and the science behind it and products like Epidiolex they've got it on large amounts of diazepines, all kinds of different things. Definitely aren't good, especially for an 18-month-old toddler. And he began to have a seizure while we were there talking. And I'm sitting there with this bottle in my hand that was more of a demo or a prop, right? Just showing what it was and how it worked. And I'll never forget, his mom just snatched it out of my hand, takes a couple droppers, shoots it in his mouth. And literally right in front of me, I watched him within 2 minutes come out of that seizure.
Wow.
Like, that was, amazing. And, we continued to provide CBD for them. We have a lot of cases like that. Obviously, when you have a child like that super ill, you can't really work much and you can't afford much. So I've given away lots and lots of product, and I provided that to them for several years, and I ended up literally they're so, into this that they moved I've lost track of them over the last few years to Colorado and started working, growing things and doing their own CBD. So I assume things are a whole lot,
I hope so.
but I don't know. But to witness something like that dramatic and that fast with a child, that was powerful.
Oh, it's a fascinating story. Do you consider actually writing these things maybe as a book, like maybe as a 100 stories or something like that? That would be actually amazing, and it can create an effect to be.
This journey would be quite a book. We've had there'd be a lot drawn, a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Hopefully, with a good ending. We're still rolling.
I believe reading something like that, even if they read a couple of stories, people can actually understand that way much more things. Actually, it's not like getting high; it's way much more than that possible misunderstandings. Actually, it is saving lives, literally. We can say. And when was the first time, for instance, when you were in a, let's say, the conference, or when you were in a, let's say, the educational seminar or something, a customer approached to you and said, basically, I use this and it helped me. Thank you for that. And I keep doing that. I believe it happened a lot every week, every day, maybe even.
Oh, yeah, and it never goes away. It's making you feel tremendous. Thankful that you can actually do something that helps your fellow man, because there's not a lot that we can do today to actually help other people. And
True.
to do something day in and day out that helps large, vast numbers of people is a powerful thing. If you're a caring, empathetic person, which I think the vast are, you just don't get the opportunity to help other people very often. Right? It just doesn't present itself. So to be in an industry and a business that's our driving force, it's really powerful. And honestly, I think that is what gives me the superpower to through keep doing what we're doing every day in the face of whatever we face. Because it's like I get up every day like full of vigor, like, okay, like who are we gonna help today? What do we got to do? Too many people need us. We can't go away. And it gives you that extra oomph, that drive that if it was just about, hey, we were making widgets and make money and outcompete people, I wouldn't have anywhere near this kind of drive to do it.
I believe you have chosen the name American Shaman because of this, right? Because a shaman also handles herbs and medicine, made medicines, treatments.
100%. That the way the name came to be is kind of a story in and of itself. We were in early February of 15, and we finally, the hemp deal and gone through. We were able to acquire it. We were able to get it. It's like, okay, we have a product here that may be viable. And I went to graphic artist, so I didn't use it to a host of things. And I wanted to go to this show that was March 1st of 2015. And she's like, wait a minute, what we're going to do a booth, and we're going to do backdrops and tablecloths and literature. And in 3 weeks, she's like, well, you better come up right now. When I just call her, so I drive over there and we start talking, and literally told done. She has an idea of what I envision. She just goes, wait a minute, what's the name? Of course, I've been messing with this for, nearly 3 years at this point, and I literally had never thought of it necessarily as a company. And I'm like, Donna, I've never actually thought about it because I never thought about it as a company until then now. And she's like, well, what just comes to you naturally? And I'm like, well, like medicine man kind of comes to me. That, the Native American type of feel. And they go, but that word medicine will probably hurt us. If this is successful, we'll probably get some issue with the FDA or something. She just goes, well, what's another name for a medicine man? Or just said the name for another name from it. And I go, shaman. She goes, oh, she just leans in. She goes, I like that. I really like that. And at the time, she's like, well, like American Shaman, right? Probably made in America. I mean, this is a product made from here. It's this and that. I'm like, yeah. So that's how the American came. And then I'm like, okay, well, what is American Shaman? Then I'm like, well, we have to tell people what it is. I'm like, okay, CBD. So it's CBD American Shaman. And she's like, you good? I'm like, good, go. And literally in a couple-minute conversation, the name was born. Totally organic, no planning, no whatsoever. And it's
What great name. It's great name, actually. The best name ever, actually. It explains everything.
Right. It just goes to be. And again, so much of this journey has been just like that. Right. I mean, there were so many set decisions and things that if you just kind of get quiet and you go with your gut or what just comes to you naturally, if you're thinking about the right things for the right reasons, just seem to happen. And that is how this entire company, 11 plus years in now, has been. It's just, it almost seems like some kind of divine intervention. You just kind of keep guided. And I think that's because we're all here trying to do the right things for the right reasons. So we haven't lost that.
Yeah. To be honest, as the name, logo is also great too.
Well, thank you. Yeah. That same designer did this as just a sketch. He was bored one day and literally drew that up. That is it's actually a peacock feather, and with all the different unique colors that she added to it. And that was just something. But then as soon as we showed it to people, they're like, "Oh, that's it. That's our logo. That's our Nike swoosh." And it just immediately, again, organically, just became us.
Yeah, the best ideas actually happen like this.
It happened. And what really gets me sometimes is, I'll be traveling through an airport or something and have Shaman shirt on, and how many people will see that? Go, oh, do you work at American Shaman? Oh, I take it every day. I've literally been checking into hotels, and court go, oh, great, American Shaman, awesome. I take your CBD every day. I take your CBD night gummies. And you're always like, wow, you're just like, you don't
Really,
right? Just went away. And then you get out and you realize, oh, wow, there's actually people behind all these sales. These are real humans. And you get to hear their amazing stories, just completely unsolicited and organic.
I believe that's why you guys actually are enduring all these heavy regulations or stress that's coming from law or other things. People, basically, you help people and you see people, they are happy, and you want to keep going with it actually and create new products, learn their feedbacks, and be part of their journey and story as well, and their recovery as well. It's definitely a magical thing. I can actually say. And for these customer stories you are having, I believe your team also sometimes is having these type of things too. Maybe it is affecting their view as well, and they feel that actually they are doing something really, let's say, in a way, holy. Actually, I mean, you are curing people basically.
For sure. Yeah. When you get those magical stories, and it didn't even have to be magical. It could just be like, oh my gosh, I never was sleeping. I was brain, I couldn't this. My knees, I got to where I couldn't hardly go to the chair and stand up. And after a month of taking your products, I'm sleeping 8 hours every night straight through. I stand right up. My knees don't click anymore. And you hear those constantly, right? That's just the daily feed that keeps you moving. And then when you hear the incredible stories, it just supercharges it.
Yes, it's actually great to know. I also wonder one thing: is there a specific type of CBD product that also helps for the focus?
So a lot of people use CBG for that.
CBD.
Yeah, CBG really is an energy and focus cannabinoid for sure.
For working, studying, it might be really helpful actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, and it's very potent. It takes very little, 3-4 milligrams. Will really.
Okay, that sounds very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And among all these things, Vince, actually, how do you handle the life-work balance as a founder? And you are also involved with lots of operations. And I'm sure that again, these legal regulations keeps sometimes you, let's say, slightly maybe stressed. And how do you handle your life for your kids or your family?
So I work a lot. Yeah, and I do my best to take off of Sunday. but I still am on the phone several hours each day. But, you know, for me, the best time of stress relief is to kind of go out into nature, hike, or, you know, clear my head. That's what I enjoy more than anything. And just time, you know, with your loved ones and just a not a purposeful setting. Hey, let's go take this 3 mile hike. Let's go up the woods. Let's go, you know, and that's what I personally do. That's my best stress relief and balancing it bonding. It's just chilling. We're just sitting on the back patio talking about whatever. And that's how I do it. But again, you know, I don't keep track of my hours. It's literally probably
I actually,
many hours a week, something like that. Yeah. So it's if you're looking for quote balance, I'm definitely out of balance, but I do keep it some
yeah.
family, private time alive.
Okay. I wonder one thing actually. I will ask it also for myself. And if you don't want to, we can cut it out. Or if you want to share, we can also share with the audience. Let's say there is a legal problem that appeared today and they actually illegalize or they, let's say, brought a new law and it requires to actually push lots of things in the company. And then you go to home and you, let's say, more stressed than usual. Also let's say the sadder. And for these type of cases, do you have a kind of system at home, maybe your partner or your kids, they when they realize that actually you are not in the mood, for instance, what they do, how they do, for instance, act, or how do you handle that case for it when you go home in a stress way? It might be also affecting their mood as well. So how that actually works for you in your personal life?
Well, you know, I do have people close to me that I can share with, talk, and work through things. So, you know, that's mostly how I do it. I don't get too short tempered or snappy. I try best to not let that kind of thing ever happen. It's more dialogue, talk about what's going on, what's happening, what you know, because you not just say it makes you feel good. Somebody's on the side, but you also get ideas. Sometimes it's surprising. Like, well, yeah, but you're not thinking about blah. Or you're not thinking about this or that. You're like, that's right. I'm not. You know, so you know, you can't just internalize everything. You're best if you're lucky enough to have people, you know, close to you that you share with, sharing it and surprising how therapeutically they can be and help you work.
And do you share this schemes with your family as well? Like there is a lady and we helped her to, let's say, help person, or there is a person we helped him, let's say, the back pain or stress, etc. And how do they feel when you share these stories?
I love it. They're there in the journey with you, right? They get it and they're very supportive. Yeah, they
So they understand. Okay, they understand the reason that you are busy.
surrounding yourself with people, you know, if you had people who didn't care, then you wouldn't get that.
Yeah, I didn't ask. You have kids, right? Or just assume
Yeah, they're adults, but yeah, I have a son.
not that kid,
Yeah, yeah.
adult kids. Okay, and do you work with them or do they do their own thing?
Yeah, my daughter actually works here. Her office is probably 30 feet from where we're sitting. Uh, and my son is in a adjacent business. We make products for it. So, but yeah, I do work with both.
That's actually good to know. And how do you adjust your family relationship with them while also you are boss of them, basically?
You know, I'm just kind of me. I'm not that or anything to begin with, right? You know, it's just I don't. There's no real barriers here with anybody,
Yeah.
right? Anybody talk to me, and my kids are the same way. So we just talk, just like yeah, normal. But if you got work to do, you got to do it too, right?
Yeah. It's a good, it should be a good feeling to work with actually your family as well. It should be you proud of in some
Yeah.
way. Actually, I can say definitely. And,
That kind of a family type business that can't family and love, right? Friends and family, as many as you can have around you. And we're here a lot more than we're home, right? So as
yeah,
enjoyable as you can make work, the better.
yeah. And was it really hard being a father and also building a kind of giant company at the same time?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it gets back to that work-life balance, and you know, if you have children at home that you're trying to raise, it's difficult if you don't ever see them. How could you influence or help them? How do you sit down and help somebody with their homework if you're not there? If you're not there, if they see you passing in the morning or going to school and you're going to work, and oh, you're home just in time to save go to bed. So it's difficult. It's just you know there are things in life. There's only so many hours in a day. It's hard to give up some things to get other things. So it's a trade off. You know,
Definitely.
whole things to weigh.
Definitely. And I have a few more questions. Quickly, I will ask them. If you'll be losing everything today, and we do this in Turkey, sorry, basically we just hit to the wood to prevent it to be happening. But let's say something like that happens, and what will be your first three steps to start over? Actually, I'm asking this for actually giving suggestions to some entrepreneurs also to help them to understand.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of difference starting at my age with my experience. What is it? I have
Yeah.
a lot of ideas of how to do it. So that I've learned.
Ideas is good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. If I was young, it'd be very different. But now,
Yeah.
well, it would depend. It'd be like, what am I trying to do? Being like, okay, I'm at this age. How long do I want to work? So it'd be a lot of things that would go in my mind. But if it was just like, how do I get back started? And I didn't put those type of walls up. I would, first level out, clear your head, let the dust settle,
First thing, clear your head.
clear everything out so you can actually get an accurate view of what's going on. And then decide, hey, what do you want to do? And then lay out the path. Okay, how do I get there? Okay, this I get there. How do I get started? And then
That's like best three steps, to be honest. Like everything also comes from the mind, and you gave the simplest steps by starting with the clear your head and see the situation, put target, and then do the plan for actually how to get there.
Exactly, right. Everything is about taking action. If you don't take action, the best laid plans don't do anything.
Definitely.
And
And
that's where I see most people fail is even just getting started, getting out of the starting blocks. A lot of people fail, but once you're going, you're going to face a lot of adversity and problems, and it takes a lot to keep going.
definitely. And today, in your life or in the business world overall, how do you measure the success on your end? With the money or with the stories of the people that you help? Or
People, right? I mean, I know honestly the point that if you were going to consider money at all, it would just be as a barometer or something like that. Because I personally don't care. For me, it's how many people work here, how well they pay, how good are their lives, how their environment. Do they have health care? Do they have these things that are important? That means a lot to me. And am I making products that are helping people? I'm giving to people, in a large scale. And that's how I measure success. So, sales going up is twofold. Okay, you can go, well, okay, there's more money attached to that. But I look at it more like, hey, I'm helping more people.
true. So basically, business is actually a way of helping others, and you measure it by helping others. So that's a great mindset.
Yeah. The right thing for the right reasons. The money and that stuff just to kind of come. If you focus on the rest of the stuff doesn't see that.
Definitely. If you solve the problems and help people, money will be coming anyway. That's definitely true. And when it comes to the today's Z generation, I can tell it actually for being an entrepreneur or starting a business, I believe it's harder than before today. For them, population is higher, opportunities are way much more, conditions, logistics are better, but also with the new developed technologies, things are changing so quickly. And if you'll be giving actually some suggestions to the kinds of, let's say, somebody in, let's say, 18 years old, 19 or 20 years old, what would you suggest them to actually start their professional career or their entrepreneurship?
The scary part of where we live right now is AI and robotics, right? So how long are we away from? I mean, your normal thing would be say, well, do a trade, do a skill, be an electrician, lay bricks, etc.
Mm.
But I'm not so sure how far we're away from robots doing those kind of jobs.
Sure.
I mean, it could be within a decade. So, this is a time where I would learn as much about AI as humanly possible and be as creative as humanly possible with that AI program and try and deep think your way into a niche that would be successful that not everybody's going to do.
Definitely.
And don't be afraid to start with nothing. Something will become something. Little by little, it will grow. You have to believe, you have to start. I do think, in a technology driven world, capital will probably be less important in some ways, right? Because you can do so many things on cheaply that, yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, people are going to always still need products and things and food and, I mean, and there are lots of little niches out there. I mean, there's a lot of, interesting foods and vegetables from around the world that conscious people are more interested in that you could grow on a small scale farm. You could get 10 or 20 acres and hand grow these things and sell people that were interested in their health and wellness at a premium. And, these are things that you could continue to do if you're suddenly not going to see tens of thousands of acres full of X. Right? You can those niches, but the key is finding niches. If you can't compete with Amazon, can't compete with Walmart, right? It we have too many enormous corporations out there to go out and compete against. So your opportunities are more limited, maybe, but everything, the only thing that's limiting anything is your creativity and your drive to put your
Sure.
so if you believe Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. So,
Sure.
and that's it. If you think you can do it, you can do it. If you're willing to put the effort, you have enough grit to see it through. But I think that's the key is what would I enjoy doing so that it become a nightmare doing it. You don't wake up and hate your life. Think of what I would like doing and then use technology as much as humanly possible to help you figure out back to that, boutique farm. Okay. Where will these sites grow? What climate? Okay. What is the land cost there? How can I get a hold of it? Okay, I can hustle up enough money for 1 acre. Is that enough to financially support itself? If so, you do your 1 acre, then you get a little extra money and you get another one. And then maybe that two becomes four and you organically grow it.
As you say, something come from something. So start from somewhere, basically.
Just start somewhere, right? No matter how small, you gotta start somewhere. If you want to grow, you have to leave that investment in the business. Don't be like, "Oh, I got to get the money in the bank. Let me go get this new car." You're getting back and forth every day, finding your used car. It's working great. You could keep. Don't suddenly need a new house. You don't need a bunch of vacations or new clothes. Keep your head down. That stuff doesn't bring you happiness anyway. It just brings you stress. And continue on your path. Let that money build up in the account and then invest it where it will grow and turn into more money. Not just
Definitely. Definitely, I agree with that. And the last one from me, I just wonder, do you consider using AI for maybe formulating your new products as well, or
we
do you?
use AI a lot in a lot of different things, both in formulations, like you mentioned, and we're looking at different plants. So we're doing AI to look at ethnogenic plants from around the world. Hey, these tribes have been using this for this for this many years, this for that, all around the world. And then when we analyze those plants, okay, well, what is the active? And with AI, I can find out what are the alkaloids or whatever is the active component in that plant very quickly. And then we can go, okay, which one is most likely or which combination of these likely to be the medicine? And then we can start focusing on that. And, you don't have to do 10 million things to find one. Maybe you can just do 1,000 things to find one or 10. So it really narrows it down. And like anything, once you've done something, it's easier to do it again and again and again. So, and we have the infrastructure, we have all the equipment, we have the chemists, we have the formulators. So it's not like starting fresh each time. And but the AI is, we have adopted aggressively in everything from online, and there's a lot you can go online now and talk to our chat bot, and it does an amazing job for what product and suggestions. It's amazing to me when I use it and I look at it like, wow, this is like I'm talking to a very educated person on this subject. So we have adopted it very quickly. And I think, that is, this is the biggest thing mankind's ever seen. So don't go against it. You better, it's one of those things you better go on board and get on board now. The more on board you are, the further ahead you'll be in the future.
Yeah, it's very innovative. I must admit, and it sounds very creative as well. And for your audience, for your customers, or for people in the industry, or for friends, would you like to say a couple of words maybe for the future of the industry, or maybe for your thoughts or your stance on the, let's say, the whatever the industry is discussing?
Well, I think how important it is to take your health and wellness care into your own hands and march to your own drummer. Don't just arbitrarily into a physician that writes you a handful of prescriptions. And oftentimes the side effects end up worse off than where you started. No one better to take care of you than you. And
Yeah,
the doctor is not inside your head. He does not know how you feel. He does not know what's going on. And here in America, you're lucky to see him for 5 minutes. And how much can you learn about anything in 5 minutes? So, stick with nature. There's far less side effects. Mankind, we got here by using nature. Why would we change now? So all we're doing is enhancing nature with science. We're taking nature and we're applying science to make it more effective, more bioavailable, that type of thing. But it's still the same material, just applied in a different way. I think that my ending words would be fight good fight. If you're using a natural product, don't be afraid to move from a prescription to some natural product. Give it time to work. But do you learn that it works for you? Please share it with others, and that includes legislators, because
Yes,
if it works very well, they're going to try and get rid of it, and your voice does matter.
definitely. And if they have a feedback or if they have a message for you, how they can reach out to you, Vince? Like with your mail, maybe in the company.
You can email me directly at VINCE at CBDAmericanshaman.com.
I'll be writing in the description area, definitely. And you check your mails, right, from the customers as well? Okay, so I believe that they are be sending some, let's say, magical stories again.
By the way, right? Please, I'm happy to. I will respond.
Definitely.
Send me some good ideas.
Probably they will do that, and they might be even feeding your AI machine with their ideas. And in fact, actually, you can actually, I can also help with that too later. But launching a kind of AI chatbot, so just and turning them into the implementable formalizations, it might be a realistic way of keeping touch with the customer base for products as well. For later, I can also talk internally about that too. Vince, I must tell that actually you are a very hardworking person. I am a little bit good at knowing people, even their face and eyes. I can already sense it. And I definitely can tell that you are attached to the people and your customers are lucky. In that case, I just wanted to also say it as a transparent, objective person, by the way. For the audience, I live actually in Turkey. And for saying this, I don't make anything. So it's very clear to me when I talk to someone, since I'm things a lot. And with that said, this is bringing us to the end of the first episode, but there will be a couple of more when you have time, or when I also have time as well, according to the new subjects. I personally enjoyed it a lot, and thank you so much for joining to me for today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.